also have to add street lights to have the same illumination that the sodium vapor would have. I personally don't want to touch the liquid fuel budget. Liquid fuel, for those in the audience that don't remember, is a trickle-down effect from the feds to the state to the county to us. That is not money that we spend of taxpayer dollars. Liquid fuel monies are not tax dollars. I don't feel that we should touch the liquid fuel budget, because if we do, and we need money for the road program for 2021, if we need money for salt, because we don't know what kind of winter it's going to be, if we need money for any other road issues, inlets or grates, then we'd have to take it out of general fund, which is tax dollars, versus liquid fuel that is non-tax dollars. So that's my feeling on it.
Well, so obviously there's money to be saved in the replacement of high-pressure sodium lights with LED, and that is an important thing to consider. The other thing to consider is that the quality of light that you get from the LED light bulb is significantly better than a high-pressure sodium or a mercury vapor. So what happens with the mercury vapor and the high-pressure sodium is gradually over time, the lights get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And no one really notices them getting dimmer because you're just living with them and you're just absorbing them. I have a friend who lives in Wallingford, and he's a dog owner. He walks his dog all the time. A couple times a month, I go over there, I spend some time with him, and we go for walks with the dog. And he cannot stop talking every time we get together about how much happier and how much he enjoys taking the walks with his dog now that the section of Wallingford that he lives in has been replaced with LED lighting. The community will really appreciate the better light. The light is whiter, it's brighter.
It'll keep you up at night?
Well, that depends on how the lights are installed and the specifics of the lamp that we purchase. Okay. The other thing to consider is that I think that we could forego a road program for a year or do smaller road programs. But if, for example, we were to replace all the light bulbs at one time and forego the road program for 1 year, then our roads aren't paved for a year, but if we are able to make the investment, our lighting budget will go down. I believe Ms. Catania said that we'll save about 50% of the $17,000 a year we spend on electricity for streetlights.
She said 30 to 40%, and we don't pay for the street light cost. The liquid fuel pays for the street light cost. And your figure of 15,000, as I gave you a copy at council, from the company itself, we're looking at $51,292.38.
Right.
That does not include, as Ms. Catania said, adding additional posts and lights, because the LED does not reflect, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't reflect the way the sodium vapors reflect. So this
I'm not sure even by reflect, light's done. Light's going to come down in a cone,
Right.
and you can purchase lights that have all different kinds of cones and all different kinds of angles. So the distance between the street lights can be calculated, and the angle of light can be determined so that halfway it reaches the next light. So that I have to believe that there are LED light fixtures that are available that will provide the same amount of coverage for the same light fixtures. And using the Wallingford example, they did not add posts, poles, or street lights or anything like that. I also really would like to bring the budget up from 15,000. I well underestimated how much I think we should spend on that. But again, if we reduce our lighting budget by $8,000 or $10,000, that means we have $8,000 or $10,000 every year after in higher road program budgets. So we may forego a road program for 1 year, but we will more than make up the mileage in roads in future years.
But which street should we not pave? Is it my street, is it your street?
But it's no streets, and I believe we
That's what I'm
should,
saying, which streets do we not pave that may need it next year so we can
Are there-
change over?
are there any
Like-
streets that are, so our community has infrastructure. We have parks, we have roads, we have streetlights, we have all different kinds of things. Every year we invest in the roads. I'm suggesting that this year we invest in the streetlights instead of the roads. If there's a street in Parkside that is in such bad shape that it can't be postponed a year, then we should take a look at that. But I don't know what roads are in such bad shape that it can't wait a year, and then we'll get 20% higher budgets every year after, because we'll spend less money on electricity
But
bills.
we're not spending any money on electricity.
Well-
The taxpayer is not spending money on electricity.
But we as a borough are when we get our money from, like,
But we take that money and put it into roads, we put it into salt, we put it into inlets, we put it into paying for this.
paying for the electricity of the streetlights. And I'm saying if we reduce our
I hear you.
streetlight budget, in half, then we have that much more money to spend on other items. And a one-time investment of, we spend about $50,000 a year on our road program. If we were instead to skip a road program for 1 year and then do a street lighting upgrade, then every year after, we have $8,000 or $10,000 additional dollars to spend on the road program.
We're actually replacing the lights now.
As
Going
they-
out now.
As,
Okay.
correct.
as they go.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. We
Because
were,
that North Forks and Rollins are next one, so we
Yes.
keep changing over now, we did.
So-
Doug, let me have your thoughts on this, please.
Again, I think it's a fantastic idea. I just haven't seen any of the other townships in like Delaware County that have gone with taking, the old ones that work out and replacing them. And I've been keeping my eye open to see if like Ridley Township's done it or one of those. I'm all for being an early adopter as far as that goes. I'm not saying it's untried or untrue technology,
Right.
but, I kind of jumped on the LED bandwagon with my house, and I'm getting a bunch of bulbs that need to be replaced just like that. So I'd like to see where,
Do you find your house brighter and whiter and?
sometimes that's a positive, sometimes that's a negative.
Thank you,
If
especially in the morning.
I mean, and as we can talk about quality of light, I'd rather stay with the financial aspects of it. I mean, we have people in the borough that are complaining about the brightness of the lights in the wood lot, so,
Yes.
there's two hands to that story. I just haven't seen other communities that have taken out good working bulbs right yet. Even no matter what the savings, no matter what, and I'm not saying I don't want to be an early adopter or move in that direction, but it would be really nice to say, oh, Ridley Township got a PICO grant to replace there probably is grants available, there will probably be things like that that move us in that direction, perhaps faster than budgeting it, and so.
I do know Upper Darby made an investment this year. So there's,
Nick, would you like to?
Replace them as they go out.
I agree. Harry?
I have to say that we should wait and replace them as we're going out. I don't like the idea, how do we tell a resident that your street's not getting fixed because we're replacing lights? Or we had 2 years ago, or 3 years, on either West Forest or West Garrison, that the road caved in. And we were looking at a $20,000 bill. We didn't know if it was going to be the borough, or was it the water company?
Yes.
And that was going to put us in financial straits. Fortunately, it went out with the water company. But you need to keep money into an account for emergencies, or like the inlet, we had the problem down in the park with something was leaking or backing up. And once again, I don't think we should, you're asking the taxpayers to pay for something that right now they're not paying for. And we don't know where the budget is now. I mean, taxes may go up, taxes are going up all over. So now we're asking residents, well, we're going to pay for this, but we can't fix your street. There is The one part that we're having the streets fixed in November, right, we paid,
Yeah, it's gonna come like 2 weeks from now.
but we left out a couple because we didn't have enough money to
That's
do those.
correct.
And we picked the worst ones, which was by the firehouse, but we still have the others over there that desperately need them because with the fire trucks going in and out, they're causing the pavements to cave in.
So we just did
So-
that a year ago. We
No,
just
no.
did that last year.
No, this year's paving, if you recall, we had a list of 4 or 5 streets that needed done. We chose the ones near the fire company because the weight of the fire trucks was collapsing those streets.
No, that was last year.
That's for
This year.
this year.
Okay.
Our street, we start in the spring, taking a look at our streets,
Right.
and by the time they get to it, it's now fall, and that's when they're starting this next 2 weeks. And
I
we
just
still
think-
have 4 or 5 streets that didn't make the cut. for
Which
next year.
streets were those?
The ones that are getting done now?
The ones that aren't getting done that need to get done?
You know, I don't know if I have the list or not, because that program's almost over with.
You know,
I just don't- I just don't
argue
see-
I would argue that the streets are in relatively good shape and that we should invest in the infrastructure of our lights instead of our streets this year.
Mrs. Guy, your thoughts?
I guess I was wondering what streets, my thoughts was that, maybe we do partway. If you guys aren't willing to do 100%, we pull half of it and do half the streetlights and see how you'll like it, and use the other half for the street that needs done. But I guess I'm not getting around all the park side, I'm curious where the streets are.
I've got a list, and Nick is more familiar, being its properties. West Shelton, Edgemont to Norfolk, we had Beechwood, we had Gray. Am I missing any, Nick? And this is an old list. Crozier Street, the intersection of Norfolk, and I don't know if we have any
Yeah,
others.
Lisa did
She did a list.
yeah.
Let me
But I
see.
just think it's not
I
fair to
live
the
on Beechwood,
residents
that
to
street
have
doesn't
streets
get
that are
any
caving in.
Oh, wait a minute. Norfolk, West Avon to Beechwood, West Shelton, Edgemont to Arlington, East Shelton, Crozier Street, Tom Sweeney. Those are the ones, we also mentioned West Shelton, Edgemont to Norfolk, Crozier, Gray to Beechwood. So that was the original list that we had to knock off those streets.
Right, that's what we're doing this year, I believe.
Yeah.
We're doing the street over next to the fire company,
We're doing the streets from Edgemont.
not Tom Sweeney.
West Shelton from Edgemont to Norfolk, and then we're doing Crozier from Gray to Beechwood.
Okay, but we're missing out Crozier and Tom Sweeney, correct? And East Shelton?
That's the list that
That
she
was-
gave us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
These are
yes.
streets that need done
Yes,
next year.
Yes.
Right.
Next year.
Well, I don't believe they're in such bad shape. I think all right, I've made my point. The quality of light will improve, and people will enjoy living in the community better with higher quality lights, and the streets can wait a year.
Like Doug said, we already have one neighbor that's complaining about the one light in the park.
With the clubs.
bright.
Yeah, she said it's like being on 95.
All right, I think we'll leave the street lights out, and we'll look at our revenue next year and replace them with LEDs as we have been, as we've been going. So, the next thing I'd like to address is the fire company expenses. We normally give a kind donation to the fire company. This year, we'll increase it to $130,000. I would ask that Joe put that into the budget.
I just said the line item.
That'll go under,
That's replacing the $10,000?
yes, that's correct. That'll go under that.
It's 411,370 contribution to firehouse. In there now, we need to do 10,000.
Yeah.
Did we get a report from the firehouse?
I spoke with the executive board, and they are doing quite well, exceeding my expectations on their issues with handling revenue. I believe one piece of equipment has already been sold, and they're moving forward on that.
So are we going to get a full report as a council, or what's the status of that?
I don't have a copy of their finances, I'm not privy. I will say that as a private entity, that their finances are, at this point, cannot be shared because they're a private entity. I can tell you what I've learned, that if you would like me to read some of my notes, Mayor, would you like, is that all right with you?
I'm sorry?
If I read some of my notes
From the firehouse?
for the firehouse?
Yes.
They've sold a piece of equipment for $20,000. They're selling an ambulance. They're reopening the hall to groups after the COVID-19 guidelines are finished. They've eliminated several monthly costs, including but not limited to the exterminator. They've restructured all of their utilities, cable, phone, etc. And they're looking into reopening the social room, which will be down the road because there's some legalities concerning that. Also, as we all know, the EMS are no longer at the fire company as of Sunday, which will save on payroll wages, taxes, workers' comp, insurances, and I feel that they've done their due diligence and have done an excellent job in curtailing expenses and also offsetting that with bringing in revenue.
So we're going to give the money to them, and is there any kind of reporting that they have to do to us, or do we just give the money and then we just hope the money doesn't run out?
Yeah, they report to us.
They
every
will
month.
report to us monthly. The fire chief, and as everybody may know, that the fire chief is new, and the mayor and I agree that the fire chief should come to council as they did years ago and give a report to council.
So, instead of giving them $10,000 like we did this year, we're giving them $130,000?
That's correct, but it'll be quarterly.
So where are we going to get that money to give to them?
It'll come out of the general fund budget?
Do we have an extra $120,000 a year to give them? Do we have revenue to offset that?
Well, that equates to approximately 2 mil increase, which, if you want to break it down further, is approximately $150 a year per household.
Okay, so taxes are going to go up for this?
2 mils as far as I know, but I have not seen the treasurer's, I have not seen the treasurer's
That's why I want to go, that's why I want to go over it.
detailed information as to what as everybody knows, our houses have been reassessed for 100% of the value.
Yeah.
We don't know what the county has,
Yeah, and they still couldn't give me an answer.
they
to that.
still could not.
So, yeah, the total reassessment, so I'm trying to get Parkside total reassessment, because we have to calculate the mill prior, before we took the total, the county would send you a letter in November with the total assessment for the Parkside Borough, then I would calculate the mill from that. In the last, like Ms. Percival said, the last 2 or 3 years, our mill's been about $63,000. And we have 11.5 mils on our taxes. So, but this year with the reassessment, properties have gone up and gone down, so you're not supposed to raise taxes with the new assessment. So you have to calculate the mill different, and I haven't found out yet how to calculate the mill. So I'm still waiting to get some
I
information.
talked to the treasurer a couple weeks ago, and I asked them the same question. What does a mill now equate to with the 100% assessment? We don't know. Joe's been on it. We don't know. The county is not giving anybody a deliberate answer.
And we don't know what our assessment is.
And we
And
don't.
they can't give it to us in November because it's going to be way different than last year, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Because some towns have gone way up and some towns have gone way down.
Right.
And so I don't know how you make it up. I don't know what Parkside is yet.
We just don't, it's an unknown. We don't know.
Philadelphia suspended their reassessment until 2022 because of the COVID pandemic.
And as I recall, I think it was Rob Powers who told us that if we don't do this, raise the mill up to get the 132, the firehouse will shut down, and our own house insurance will go up. Would that be a correct statement there, Mr. Powers?
Do we
I
know?
deal
Well,
with the
not-
insurance company. My insurance without a fire company in town will go up to almost $2,600 a year. Right now, I'm paying about $1,250, $1,300 the most.
I think ours is about 3,000.
Not just that, as I don't know what anybody else feels, but we would have to pay another fire company to come in, so why would we do that
Mutual aid.
when we have our own fire company to support?
Yeah, nobody's objecting to supporting our fire company. I just wanted to understand where the money was coming from. And so if we're going to be subsidizing the fire company, are they going to continue to keep their finances closed?
My understanding is the fire chief will be here at regular meetings like they used to.
Madam President, if I may.
Sure.
I believe under the Commonwealth law, once a municipality enters into a financial agreement with the local fire department, then the local fire department is required to present to that municipality a financial findings in a time period convenient to the municipality. Now, the law is silent as to what exactly finances the fire company has to give because it's a separate entity chartered under the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So my assumption would be that the fire company would, at the request of council, provide the council with the necessary information on expenditures and income, basically what it's going to cost the fire department to keep the doors open and the lights on. I think that Councilman Copabianca and Mr. Powers bring up an excellent point. If the fire company were to cease operations, regardless of whether there's a fire company 2 blocks down the road in another town, the insurance company, which is called the ISO, the Insurance Services Organization, which is the group that rates fire protection rates for communities, would still have to rate Parkside as being unprotected because there is no local fire company, which means the insurance rates for individual homeowners would probably increase. On top of that, if the fire company were to cease operations, under the Commonwealth law, the council would have to provide fire protection one way or another, and I don't have any specific figures on what that would cost, but I would say it would probably cost equal to or over the $130,000.
That's correct. And this will be paid out quarterly. This will be out quarterly to the fire company.
Here's another question to that. So if the fire company discloses their finances to council, it's not just a single personal account, it's a count as a whole. So if I just couldn't go over to there and say, let me go see your finance because I'm on council.
That's correct.
So it would have to be a council as a whole.
That's correct.
Okay.
And also, I believe we put it as a line item so that if by chance, God forbid, the fire company should shut down, then the money would go into our general fund.
That's
So
correct.
we would not lose what we've given.
That's correct.
So it's more, so we would use that money than to pay, per se, like Brookhaven. So we're covered either way.
At least, contribution, right? Contribution.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
what
We
we're
put this
doing.
in as a line item. We didn't put it as a donation.
No,
or
it's
whatever.
not a
You're bumping
donation.
it- You're bumping it $120,000, which you'd like to do. The line item's been in there since you've been giving them 10,000. It's right under 411, which is the fire account. And you're just bumping it up 120,000.
That's
So it's
correct.
a win-win for both.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anybody else have any questions on that fire company issue?
And we won't have an empty building in.
We won't have to purchase one, huh?
Well, drive through Lenai and look at their abandoned firehouse, drive through all the places when they do all these consolidations, it doesn't look nice. I mean,
It's not.
yeah, and it might be a moral thing, but, empty churches, firehouses and things like that just don't build
And
community.
homes.
It just doesn't build community.
Okay, look, one of them here.
If we don't support our own, who will? And I'm sure everybody supports the fire company and the police department, so we'll move on. Anybody else have any questions on that issue? Does anybody have any questions on the budget for does any council member have any questions so far where we're going on the budget? Okay, if everybody's good, then at this time, if anybody in the audience has a specific question concerning the budget items we discussed tonight, I will entertain that. If you could stand up and give me your name and your address, and we'll try to answer it for you. This was too easy. Rob?
Rob Powers, can you please add $2,500 to emergency management for fire marshal slash? I put in for it every year, haven't used it in 5 years.
I
But-
think,
Yep.
Joe, did you already put that in? I know Rob didn't give us a budget, but that's usually standard.
Yeah, I have a salary, and I have a different spot.
I think last year I put in 2,000.
Yeah, you
I've
get-
never used it, but in case I need it, evidence cans, things like that.
Okay.
2,500?
And I'm gonna need probably a helmet this year. The other one is not in compliance anymore. So if something happened to me, a beam fell on my head while I was investigating or something, you open yourself up to a lawsuit. I get injured, so just wanna make sure I stay compliant.
Are you okay until the end of the year, into the new year?
I'm sorry?
Are you okay until the new year with the helmet?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question concerning budget figures only? If council has nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do, so.
And let me say one more thing, is our next budget meeting is October 12th, which is again a Monday at 6:30. Scott, what else did you have?
Will we get a draft of the budget at that time?
Yes,
Yeah, I'll give you a
yes.
preliminary. Yeah, what- If I could just get 2 seconds, Ms. President.
Go ahead, Joe.